Picture this, a billionaire with cold steel against her spine, right in my coffee line. One wrong move meant death. Then she locked eyes with me, a tired dad signing to his daughter. Hiding her trembling fingers from the man, she quietly signed, "Help me." He has a weapon. What I decided to do next changed everything. On paper, 34-year-old Vivian Sterling had everything a person could desire. She was the chief executive and primary shareholder of Zenith Worldwide, a massive multi-billion-dollar logistics and tech empire headquartered in Chicago. Her entire life looked like a perfect masterpiece of corporate success. She covered financial magazines and commanded boardroom meetings with a completely icy, calculated brilliance. She even lived in a sprawling penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. But that dreary, rain-soaked Tuesday morning in November, all of Vivian's massive wealth, power, and business influence were suddenly rendered absolutely worthless by a 3-pound piece of metal pressed firmly against her right kidney. I learned later the man hiding that suppressed 9mm pistol under his heavy wool trench coat was Dominic Grayson. Just 6 months prior, Dominic was Zenith's chief operating officer and Vivian's deeply trusted confidant. Well, that was before financial investigators had uncovered the elaborate web of shell companies Dominic used to steal $40 million right out of their offshore accounts. Vivian quietly fired him, handing the fraud evidence to the FBI so she could avoid a massive public stock plummet. She honestly thought she handled it cleanly. She was so terribly wrong. You see, the nightmare started exactly 42 minutes earlier, down inside the private biometric-secured underground garage of her penthouse. Vivian had dismissed her entire security detail for the morning. She just wanted 20 minutes of quiet solitude driving to the office. Right as she unlocked her armored Mercedes, Dominic stepped right out from the shadows of a heavy concrete pillar. He didn't shout at all. He didn't make a scene. He just jammed the gun barrel into her side. His eyes were hollow and manic, reeking of stale whiskey and pure desperation. "You're going to walk with me, Viv," Dominic whispered, his voice sounding like a dry, rasping hiss against her cheek. "We're going to take a nice, slow stroll to the First Fidelity Bank on Michigan Avenue. You are going to authorize a physical transfer of bearer bonds from your private vault right into my waiting briefcase. If you scream, if you run, or if you look at a cop the wrong way, I will pull this trigger. The bullet will shatter your spine before anyone even hears the shot. Do you understand me?" Vivian nodded right then, a paralyzing chill of pure terror freezing her blood completely solid. Now they were standing near me inside the Roasted Bean, a busy artisanal coffee shop located precisely halfway between her luxury penthouse and the bank. The bank wouldn't open its vault doors until 9 in the morning, and Dominic was paranoid about pacing streets where a passing patrol car might spot the famous CEO. So he forced her inside that cafe to kill the remaining 15 minutes. Let's be honest, to most morning commuters packed into the warm espresso-scented shop, Vivian and Dominic just looked like a wealthy, intensely focused couple. But I noticed Dominic's left arm wrapped violently tight around her waist in a mock embrace. We noticed details. His right hand stayed buried in that coat. I spotted the gun muzzle digging a painful bruise into her ribs. Her chest moved fast, heart hammering like a trapped bird. Her mind was usually a strategic supercomputer, but pure panic was fracturing it. She looked acutely aware she might die. The guy holding her had nothing to lose. I later learned his assets were frozen, with heavy federal indictments looming fast. He was a cornered animal. I could sense she knew with sickening certainty that whether she surrendered those bonds or not, he was never going to let her walk out alive. He couldn't risk living witnesses. "Smile, Viv," he whispered. I watched his lips practically brush against the shell of her ear. That creepy intimacy clearly made her stomach churn violently. "You look like you're at a funeral. People will stare." "Relax your shoulders," he muttered. I saw her force her face to comply, stretching into a rigid, lifeless, fake smile. Her eyes darted frantically around the cafe, searching face after face for help. A college kid furiously typing on a laptop, 2 businessmen loudly arguing over a spreadsheet, the barista shouting a complicated latte order over the hissing, loud steam wand. Not a single one of them noticed the hostage situation happening right there. Everybody was entirely, completely oblivious that a billionaire stood in the pastry line, moments away from an execution. She desperately needed an out, a way to signal somebody, but how? A sudden move meant a bullet. Screaming would just cause collateral damage. In his panic, he would definitely open fire on the crowded shop. He had her phone inside his pocket, trapped inside a glass cafe cage surrounded by oblivious people, yet feeling completely alone. As he shoved her half a step forward, her desperate gaze swept across the coffee pickup counter. That's exactly when she saw me. I was completely exhausted, but it was a good kind of tired. I'm a 28-year-old high school history teacher and a single dad. My life is a chaotic grading symphony. Making dinosaur pancakes and stretching a really tight budget. This morning was a rare treat. My daughter Mia turned 7 today, and I had promised her a decadent white hot chocolate with extra whipped cream before dropping her off at school. Mia sat on a tall wooden stool near the pickup counter, her little legs kicking excitedly. Her bright pink unicorn backpack resting right on the floor beside her. She's incredibly smart, a remarkably observant kid herself, with a spray of freckles across her nose. She's also profoundly deaf. I leaned against the counter, keeping a watchful eye on my daughter. I raised my hands, my face lighting up with expressive warmth, and started signing to her. "Are you excited for the museum field trip today?" I signed, keeping my movements fluid and natural. Mia's face completely lit up. She dropped her hands from her face and quickly signed back to me. "Yes, Daddy." "Will we see the big dinosaur bones, the T-Rex, the biggest ones?" I signed back, exaggerating the massive size with wide arms, making her giggle silently. 30 feet away, locked in that deadly grip, Vivian watched our exchange. You and I could see the jolt hit her system. Before she was a corporate titan, before the massive boardrooms and the billions. I'd later learn Vivian grew up fiercely protecting her deaf little brother Thomas. She'd been fluent in American Sign Language since she was just 10 years old. Thomas lost his battle with leukemia 5 years prior, but those signs were permanently hardwired into her brain. Stick with me here. Reaching out was a desperate gamble, but it was her only shot. The man holding her got distracted. He glared at the cafe menu, quietly calculating how long until the bank next door finally opened. His tight grip around her waist loosened by just a tiny fraction. Vivian carefully shifted her weight. She angled her body, resting her left hand casually against her $4,000 cashmere coat. Her oversized designer handbag blocked the view. Then she locked her eyes right on me by the pickup counter. She stared me down, channeling pure terror and absolute urgency, just praying I'd catch her gaze. I felt the heavy weight of someone watching me. I turned and my eyes met hers. For a split second, I just saw a stunning, impeccably dressed businesswoman staring right at me. I felt a quick flash of embarrassment. I honestly wondered if I had baby powder on my jacket. But then I looked closer. I noticed the stark, bloodless pale of her face. I saw those wide, dilated pupils practically drowning in a sea of raw panic. Then I spotted the guy behind her, standing way too close, one hand totally hidden inside his heavy coat. Next, I noticed her left hand pressed flat against her chest. Her fingers twitched in short, sharp, very deliberate motions. This was not random fidgeting. It was flawless sign language confined to a tiny, almost totally invisible space. Help. My breath hitched in my throat. I completely froze, my hands stalling out in midair. I blinked, wondering if my sleep-deprived brain was just playing tricks on me. But the CEO locked eyes with me again. Her gaze practically burned into my soul. Her fingers shifted again, slightly more frantic this time around. "Man behind me. Gun, you and I both know exactly how terrifying those words really are." Blood rushed loudly in my ears, totally drowning out the ambient noise of the cafe. The barista shouting orders, the loud grind of espresso beans, it all faded into a dull, muffled hum. My old military training. 4 years as an Army Ranger combat medic, right before my honorable discharge and shifting to teaching, suddenly kicked in with terrifying clarity. Pure adrenaline flooded my system, sharpening every sense. I wasn't looking at some billionaire executive anymore. I saw a hostage. I quickly analyzed the guy behind her. His rigid posture, how he strategically blocked her exit, that completely unnatural bulge in his right coat pocket. This poor woman was telling the absolute truth. There was a loaded gun inside this crowded coffee shop, pointed right at her spine. "Please," she signed to me as one single tear escaped her left eye and slowly tracked down her pale cheek. "Do not look at him." The silent message was clear, and I instantly averted my eyes. I stared back at little Mia, but my peripheral vision stayed completely deadlocked on the couple. My mind immediately raced through 1,000 terrifying scenarios. If I called the police, the approaching sirens would definitely trigger the gunman. If I rushed the guy, I risked a wild misfire hitting Vivian, or even worse, striking someone else in the crowd. I risked Mia. I looked down at my beautiful girl. My oblivious daughter, just happily swinging her little legs. Every fatherly instinct inside me screamed to grab Mia, bolt out the venue's back door, and just dial 911 from a safe distance. Let's be honest, most people would walk away, not my problem. But glancing back at the CEO, I caught something no one else saw: total, helpless resignation. She knew she was dead. If I just walked out of that gala, I'd be leaving her right there to be silently executed. I just couldn't do it. I leaned down to Mia. I kept my face perfectly calm, pasting on a gentle, reassuring dad smile. "Mia, sweetheart," I signed quickly. "We are going to play a special secret agent game right now." Her eyes widened with delight. "A game? Yes. I need you to grab your backpack. Walk straight into the catering manager's office behind that counter. Tell them Daddy said to lock the door and not come out until I say the secret word. Go fast, be totally invisible." Mia, totally used to my playful spy games, nodded seriously. She grabbed her unicorn bag, hopped down, and scurried behind the event bar, slipping through the staff door before anyone even noticed. With my little girl safe. The panicked dad faded. The observant former ranger took over. I had to separate this hidden gunman from the CEO. I needed a distraction so massive, so incredibly disorienting, that he wouldn't even have time to pull that trigger. I couldn't just throw a punch. His weapon was already pressed hard against her side. I grabbed the scalding hot 20-ounce ceramic mug of dark coffee the event barista had just handed me. I turned away from the serving bar and started walking toward the main exit, my path naturally intersecting exactly where the CEO and her captor stood. I saw Vivian watching me approach, pure panic in her eyes. I could tell she was screaming internally, terrified my cluelessness would get us both killed. As I closed the distance, 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet, I didn't slow down. I refused to make eye contact. I played the distracted guest, blindly fumbling for my car keys in my pocket. Just as I brushed past Dominic's right shoulder, I executed a maneuver so flawlessly clumsy, it looked completely authentic. I violently tripped over my own feet, pitching my entire body weight forward. With a loud theatrical shout of surprise, I flung the heavy ceramic coffee mug and its scalding 200-degree contents directly into Dominic Grayson's face. The agonizing shriek that tore from that gunman's throat was absolutely primal. You and I both know a sound like that haunts those party guests for the rest of their lives. That 200-degree coffee hit him squarely, instantly blistering his cheeks and completely blinding his eyes. The sheer overwhelming shock of the burn caused his entire body to seize up, his finger resting so tensely on the trigger of that 9mm. Contracted involuntarily, bang. The gunshot was totally deafening inside that enclosed luxury venue. Even suppressed, the weapon cracked like a bullwhip, the bullet tearing through the hem of the CEO's expensive coat. It missed her hip by a fraction of an inch, exploding right into the event's glass pastry display case. Shards of glass and mangled blueberry scones showered the absolutely horrified corporate crowd. Pandemonium immediately erupted. Screams echoed everywhere as wealthy businessmen and elite networking guests panicked. Catering staff scrambled for cover, diving beneath cocktail tables and stampeding toward the exit. Ainsworth never even hesitated. The second his coffee flew, his body was already launching forward with unstoppable momentum. Before the attacker could wipe that scalding liquid away or even realign his gun, Ainsworth slammed into him with the brutal force of a runaway train. His left hand locked onto Dominic's weapon wrist like an absolute steel vise. He forced the barrel upward, driving his right forearm straight into the corporate spy's throat. Both men crashed onto the venue's hardwood floor in a brutal, chaotic tangle. You and I can see Dominic panic, fueled by pain and knowing he's caught. He fought back with the manic strength of prey. He thrashed around, desperately trying to buck Ainsworth off. "Let go of me." Dominic roared, a wet, desperate sound, swinging a massive left hook that cracked Ainsworth right in the jawline. Ainsworth definitely saw stars, the metallic taste of fresh blood flooding his mouth. Yet he flat out refused to release his tight grip on that gun. Control the weapon, control the threat. His former military instructor's voice clearly echoed in his head. He smashed the attacker's wrist against the hard floorboards, once, twice, 3 times, trying to knock the pistol loose. Now, Vivian had been tossed backward during that first collision. She slammed hard into a wooden chair. Her ears were totally ringing from the blast, vision blurring. But watch closely as she stares at them grappling. Her terrified paralysis completely vanishes. It instantly shifted into a cold, highly calculating fury. She saw it clearly. This spy stole her data, threatened her life, and was trying to murder the observant stranger who risked everything for her. She quickly scrambled to her feet. She didn't sprint for the exit like the other guests. Instead, the billionaire grabbed the heavy iron base of a dismantled table. Down on the floor, the struggle was getting lethal. Realizing his gun was trapped, Dominic suddenly reached deep into his trench coat with his free hand. A sharp click echoed as a 6-inch tactical blade sprang open. With a nasty sideways swipe, he drove that blade toward Ainsworth's ribs. Ainsworth violently twisted away from the kill shot, but took the blade through his thick jacket and deep into the muscle of his left bicep instead. Searing pain flared up, but that bloody wound bought him the perfect opening. Completely ignoring the blade in his arm, Ainsworth shifted weight. He trapped the attacker's knee and pulled off a flawless jiu-jitsu sweep. He quickly reversed their spots, pinning Dominic hard on his back. But just as Dominic raised that knife for another try, aiming a fatal strike at Ainsworth's neck, a shadow fell. Vivian swung that iron table base with every single ounce of strength her adrenaline-fueled body had. The thick metal smashed into Dominic's skull with an absolutely sickening crack. Dominic's eyes instantly rolled backward, his tight grip on the blade finally loosening. The weapon clattered harmlessly against the hard floorboards. The gun slipped right from his limp fingers. He was out cold. Ainsworth gasped for air, chest heaving as he stared down at the totally unconscious threat beneath him. He slowly looked upward, his chest still rising and falling. Let's reflect. He locked eyes with the panting CEO standing right over him. That heavy iron base still gripped tightly in her manicured hands. Nice swing. Real heroes observe. I watched Ainsworth panting, fresh pain radiating from his bleeding arm. I noticed Vivian drop the iron. I saw her hands shake, a silent plea as the adrenaline finally faded. She sank quietly to her knees beside him. I saw the unspoken horror in her eyes watching blood soak his jacket sleeve. You're bleeding. Oh my God, he stabbed you. I've had worse. He faked a smile, but I noticed his pale, hidden vulnerability. His anxious eyes darted toward the barista counter. Mia, he shouted, his voice echoing through the eerie, smoke-filled coffee shop. Mia, the secret word is T-Rex. Come out, sweetie. The manager's door finally clicked. I watched little Mia peek out, her terrified eyes carefully observing the smashed glass, overturned cafe tables, and the bleeding man. The moment she spotted Ainsworth on the floor, she ditched her backpack and rushed over, heavy tears welling in her eyes. Daddy, you're hurt. I saw her sign frantically, tiny hands shaking. He pulled her into a desperate, one-armed hug, kissing the top of her head. I'm okay, Bug. Daddy's okay. The bad man is sleeping. I watched Vivian observing them, tears finally spilling over her dark lashes. She reached out, resting a gentle, bloody hand on his safe shoulder. Thank you. She signed it perfectly, her fingers moving with precise grace. You saved my life. Before he could even reply, police sirens shattered the quiet morning air. Stick with me here. Red and blue lights flooded the cafe's large windows. A heavily armed SWAT team, answering the active shooter alert, stormed inside with rifles raised. Police, nobody move, the nightmare was over, or so she clearly thought. The harsh fluorescent hospital lights buzzed with a deeply irritating hum in the trauma bay. I noticed Ainsworth sitting shirtless on the edge of a hospital gurney. An emergency doctor carefully stitched up the deep, nasty cut on his arm. Little Mia sat quietly in a cheap plastic chair. She was happily eating a blue popsicle a nurse offered, glued to an iPad cartoon. I saw Vivian pacing the room, silently needing help, gripping a cup of untouched water. The cops had finally allowed her to wash off the dried blood, but I noticed she flatly refused to leave his side. She had already given her preliminary statement to Detective Sarah Jenkins, a sharply observant investigator who was standing right outside their hospital door. You really don't have to stay, Miss Sterling, Ainsworth said, wincing slightly as the doctor tied off a tight suture. You've been through a massive trauma. You should go home. Rest. I watched Vivian stop and look at him. Stripped of her designer coat, wearing a wrinkled blouse, I saw someone profoundly vulnerable. You saved me, Ainsworth. The absolute least I can do is make sure you don't pass out. Furthermore, Zenith Worldwide will be covering your daughter's full college tuition. Fully funded, consider it an irrevocable trust. Ainsworth blinked, completely stunned. You really don't have to do that. I am a billionaire, Ainsworth. I do exactly what I want. You and I see the truth here. Her CEO's smirk appeared, but I noticed it vanish just as fast. I watched her process everything. You could practically see her sharp CEO mind replaying the morning's chaos piece by piece. Something felt completely wrong. Dominic was desperate, sure, but that guy was an operations manager, a spreadsheet junkie. He definitely wasn't some tactical genius. How could he find the exact camera blind spots inside her secure penthouse parking garage? How did he get past the elevator's biometric security scanners? And the biggest question, how did he know her highly trained executive protection team was sent away that very morning? Only one guy controlled her security schedule. The heavy trauma room doors suddenly crashed open, breaking the silence. In walked Clayton Reynolds, the company's director of global security. He was a physically imposing guy in his late 40s, dressed in a totally immaculate charcoal suit. A tactical earpiece was tucked discreetly in his left ear. He acted completely breathless, his face faking deep concern. Vivian, thank God, he yelled, rushing straight toward her. I just got the police precinct alert. When I heard about the coffee shop, I rushed right over. Then he turned to me, nodding curtly. I hear we owe you everything for keeping our CEO safe. The corporation will pay you handsomely for your bravery, sir. He already has an endowment. Vivian replied coldly, her eyes locked on Clayton. That is excellent. Clayton answered, turning back toward her. Right now, we need to move. The media caught wind of the attack. News vans are already flooding the hospital lobby. I have a secure armored SUV waiting out in the ambulance bay. We must evacuate you to the corporate safe house out in the suburbs immediately, at least until we confirm if that attacker had any accomplices. She just stared at him. I watched the puzzle pieces lock together behind her terrified eyes. I knew she hadn't dismissed her security detail today. I watched her face drop, a setup at 6 in the morning. A fake warning about a credible threat at the office. An excuse to reroute her protection team. He told her to drive herself to that private garage. The bank attacker didn't have an accomplice. His inside man was right here. The first guy was just disposable muscle sent to grab those bearer bonds. Clayton was the real mastermind. If she got into that SUV with him, she was completely doomed. He would finish the job his guy botched, steal the bonds himself and frame the fugitive. I watched the color completely drain from Vivian's pale face. She was trapped all over again. She glanced at me. I was watching the whole exchange very intently. Between my old military deployments and teaching high school, I'd developed a dead-on instinct for reading human body language. I noticed her spine go completely rigid with sudden fear. I caught the subtle way she shifted her balance away from her treacherous security chief. I saw pure, unadulterated terror suddenly flare up. Deep in her eyes, the exact same desperate look she'd given me at the cafe. She casually crossed her arms, resting her trembling hands tightly against her ribs. While staring straight at Clayton and faking agreement with his corporate extraction plan, she tapped her fingers against her side, hidden from him but perfectly visible to me. Look, my heart was hammering against my ribs. You ever just sense trouble? Not again, I thought. You're right, Clayton. Vivian agreed smoothly. Her CEO voice was a masterclass. We should leave. The safe house is best, she said. Right this way. Clayton replied, pointing to the door. I caught a dark, triumphant flash in his eyes. He reached into his jacket for a radio, but I watch people, I saw it. That subtle shoulder shift, the exact tell of a guy drawing a hidden weapon inside. He wasn't waiting for a safe house. He wanted to kill us in the ambulance bay. Actually, hold on a second, I said loud enough, sliding off the gurney. The doctor protested, but I just ignored him. I strolled over, putting my body directly between the corporate security chief and Vivian. Excuse me, Mr. Harper, Clayton warned, his tone going hard. This is a matter of corporate security. Just step aside. I just need to ask a quick question about that payout you mentioned earlier, I said, stepping closer and completely invading his personal space. We can discuss that later, it's just that. I cut him off, dropping my voice to a deadly whisper. I noticed you're sweating, Clayton, hand hovering right over a shoulder holster, which is strange, considering the police already secured this whole building. His eyes went wide. He realized the quiet teacher saw right through him. His hand darted for the jacket, but my eyes were there. Ignoring the screaming pain in my freshly stitched arm, I stepped inside his guard. Using my good right arm, I drove a brutal palm strike right into his nose. Cartilage crunched really loud. Blinded by the impact, he stumbled back, his gun hand still trapped inside his jacket. I did not wait. Sweeping his legs out from under him, I drove him hard onto the linoleum floor. "Detective Jenkins!" Vivian screamed at the top of her lungs, throwing the hospital door open. Jenkins rushed inside with her weapon drawn, staring at the total chaos. I had my knee planted firmly down on Clayton's chest. I wrenched the security chief's arm backward, stripping away a suppressed compact pistol. "He is the inside man." Vivian pointed at the bleeding traitor, shaking but strong. "Arrest him right now." Later, the 18th Precinct interrogation room reeked of stale coffee and cheap industrial floor cleaner. Behind the two-way glass, Vivian Sterling stood with her arms crossed. We watched Clayton sitting handcuffed to the metal table, even with his shattered nose packed tight with bloody medical gauze. The guy maintained an air of smug, arrogant defiance. "Look at this guy with me." He operated in shadows, fully confident his expensive legal maze guaranteed absolute freedom. Detective Sarah Jenkins leaned back against the wall, looking grim. "He is not talking, Miss Sterling." He invoked his lawyer. His lawyers are a massive defense firm. They arrive in 20 minutes with a writ to post his bail before formal charges. Without solid proof tying him to Dominic's attack in that cafe, it becomes just his word against ours. You and I both know the truth. I studied Vivian's cold, calculating eyes. If we look closely, that morning's terror was gone, leaving only a ruthless survivor behind. I saw the brilliant logistics CEO fully reclaim her terrifying power. I knew Clayton had severely miscalculated. He stupidly thought he was playing some clever tactical spy game. But I saw Vivian plotting total annihilation. "Detective," she called. Her voice struck me as eerily calm. "I need 3 minutes alone inside." "Absolutely not." Jenkins shot back instantly. "He is an active suspect for attempted murder and corporate espionage. If I let you inside, any halfway decent defense lawyer claims witness tampering and gets this whole case tossed out." I watched Vivian lock her terrifying gaze on the hardened cop, Detective Jenkins. "In the past 2 hours, my shell company legally acquired the mortgage on this precinct's building. I am currently the landlord for the Chicago Police Department's 18th District. If you refuse to open that door, I will triple the rent, trigger a municipal budget crisis, and keep your pension fund trapped in endless lawsuits until you turn 90. 3 minutes, I saw Jenkins stare. You and I could see he recognized the unyielding power of a woman who just outlasted a loaded gun. The detective sighed heavily, finally backing away from the door. "The recording gear is legally required to stay on. I am going to grab coffee. What happens for these next 3 minutes remains completely unobserved by me." The door clicked shut. I observed Vivian smoothly walk right into the interrogation room. Clayton glanced up, a cruel and bloody smile twisting his mouth. "Vivian," he sneered, his voice terribly nasal through the gauze, "you look horrible." "Adrenaline crash. Relax, my legal team will spring me out before lunch break. Dominic was just a rogue operator, some bitter, disgruntled employee. You have zero proof against me." I noticed Vivian never sat. She walked to the metal table's edge, carefully sliding one pristine, perfectly white envelope right in front of him. "You are right, Clayton," she murmured softly. "The cops have absolutely nothing on you." "But I am not the police, I am Zenith." I caught his cocky smile faltering. He stared nervously at the envelope. "What is this?" "While you were busy getting your nose shattered by a high school history teacher," she explained. I watched her pace around him like a shark circling its wounded prey. "I made several phone calls to Zenith's real cybersecurity division, not the worthless team you oversee. I ordered them to launch a completely hostile, deep forensic audit into your entire digital footprint. using our proprietary quantum decryption algorithms. Clayton visibly paled. "Open it," she commanded. With shaking, handcuffed hands, I watched him clumsily open the envelope. "Look at the details with me." 3 papers inside, and his panicked breath instantly hitched. "That," she pointed flawlessly at the document, "is a routing number for a hidden offshore account in the Seychelles. It holds $12 million, the exact missing sum from our European shipping branch last quarter. An account registered to a dummy corporation owned by your own sister-in-law." I watched her flip to page 2. "This is a transcript of an encrypted satellite call you made at 6:15 a.m. this morning to Dominic Grayson, confirming the complete dismissal of my Israeli security detail. I heard the recording she used. Make it look like a botched robbery. Secure the bonds, I'll clear your extraction." I knew Clayton was never going to let him escape. She knew his game. He would kill the guy for the briefcase, keeping the $40 million and the bearer bonds. That would effectively silence the only man who knew about the European embezzlement. On the tape, Clayton sweated heavily. His smug smirk had entirely vanished. "This is illegally obtained evidence," he stammered. "It is inadmissible in court. It is a clear violation of federal wiretap laws." "I don't care about court, Clayton." I watched her lean in close. Her voice dropped to a terrifying absolute whisper. "If I hand this to the FBI, they will spend 5 years building a case. But if I leak this to the Chechen logistics cartel you blamed for that European shortfall, they won't need a judge. They will track you down, and they will find your family. They are not exactly known for their adherence to due process." I saw him gasp on the tape. He was totally trapped. "You and I know how this ends." No weapon or legal loophole could save him from the sheer, crushing weight of a billionaire's unlimited corporate resources and pure rage. "You have 2 options, Vivian said on the video, smoothing out her silk blouse. "Option 1, you just remain silent. My lawyers post these documents on the dark web in 10 minutes, and you spend your very short life constantly looking over your shoulder. Option 2, when Detective Jenkins returns, you provide a full recorded confession. You detail the embezzlement, the assassination plot, and Dominic's involvement. In exchange, I will keep the Chechens entirely out of it, and you get to survive inside a federal penitentiary." I saw Vivian turn and walk toward the door. As she touched the doorknob, Clayton's broken and defeated voice echoed through that small interrogation room. "Wait, I will confess. I will tell them everything." Vivian never smiled. She just opened the door, stepping out into the hallway where Detective Jenkins was waiting. "He is all yours, Detective. I believe he has found his conscience. You know how it goes. 3 weeks had passed since the roasted bean. That leaked security footage from the little cafe, showing the tense standoff and my sudden intervention, it went totally viral worldwide. The media suddenly dubbed me the silent savior. But between you and me, the sudden fame was a suffocating nightmare. Paparazzi camped outside my modest apartment building, shouting annoying questions daily. My phone rang endlessly with media offers. I just wanted my quiet life back. On a sunny Thursday, I was grading history papers, while Mia sat on the rug drawing. A heavy knock echoed. Expecting another reporter, I sighed heavily and checked the peephole. Instead, I saw the impeccable silhouette of Vivian Sterling herself. I slowly unbolted the door. Vivian stood there, flanked by 2 massive men in dark suits, her newly reinstated, highly vetted security team. "Miss Sterling," I said, entirely surprised. "You shouldn't be here. The press will swarm this block." "They won't." Vivian stepped right inside. "I bought the building across the street this morning and allowed them to use the roof for a press conference. I have absolutely no intention of attending. They are staring at an empty podium." I just chuckled. "You bought a building just for a distraction?" I asked. "Efficiency, Ainsworth," she replied. Her eyes actually softened, scanning my small apartment before landing right on Mia. Recognizing the CEO, my daughter dropped her crayons and signed with quick, eager precision. "Hello, brave lady." Vivian gave her a genuinely warm smile. She knelt down and signed back fluidly. "Hello, Secret Agent Mia." Mia absolutely beamed, rushing over to show off her drawing. Let me tell you, watching this ruthless executive connect with my deaf daughter completely floored me. Vivian stood up and turned back to me. "We need to discuss your future," she said. "Vivian, I already told you." I crossed my arms defensively. "I do not want your money. That college fund for Mia is more than enough. I belong in my classroom, and I agree, she said, dead serious. After Clayton's arrest, I realized I spent 10 years building a corporate tech empire. I built a massive, untouchable fortress of wealth. But with a gun pressed to my back, none of that mattered. The only thing that actually saved my life was connection. A language I learned from my brother, and a stranger observant enough to listen. She pulled a thick leather portfolio from her designer bag. I opened it cautiously. Inside, I found blueprints and a charter for a massive modern facility. The Thomas Sterling Academy, built for the deaf and hard of hearing. I am stepping down as CEO of Zenith Worldwide, she announced very calmly. I am transitioning to board chairman instead. I'm using my personal fortune to fully fund this entire academy, right here in Chicago. I stared at the blueprints, specialized acoustic classrooms, cutting-edge tech labs. I was stunned. This is incredible, Vivian. You are going to change thousands of lives. It will, she nodded back, but I only know logistics and hostile takeovers. I have no idea how to run a school. I cannot build a real community where kids like Mia and my brother can thrive. This board needs a president. Someone with teaching experience, leadership, and the guts to step in front of a knife for a total stranger. The salary is substantial and the budget is unlimited. And the press will finally leave you in peace behind the walls of a secured estate. I was completely speechless. I looked down at the portfolio, then at Mia, happily tugging Vivian's coat sleeve. You and I know the daily barriers deaf students face, the absolute lack of funding. Suddenly, I had the real opportunity to tear all that down. I really don't know what to say. Say yes, Ainsworth. She signed the words while she spoke, forming this quiet pact between two survivors. Help me build something that actually matters. I stared at this billionaire who was seconds away from death, now a completely reborn woman. I shut the portfolio. A massive, genuine smile broke across my tired face. I raised my hands and signed back to her. When do we start? The silence in that room was absolute. Yet it was the most beautiful sound either of us had ever truly heard. Hit that like button if you and I share a love for breathless, heart-pounding stories. Share this incredible drama with your friends to prove the real power of observation and human connection. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our next thrilling video. Pure unseen drama. What would you have spotted in Ainsworth's shoes? Leave your own keen observations in the comments.